He's like, I turned down her beer. And I was like, okay, what was that? And he's just like, nah, I'll go get one of my own in a minute, but I just wanted to let her know I didn't want her beer. And I was like, why? Why are we going to this next level of petty? And he's like, well, you told us to be nice, but I'm testing my boundaries. And I was like, God, you guys are ridiculous. She would give it right back to, like, she would even notice, like, later we were talking on the patio, and she was just like, I noticed he didn't accept my beer. I bought that beer because I knew he liked that beer, and he didn't take it. And I was like, yeah, he didn't want that one at the time, so he got his own in a minute. Just trying to keep peace. Then there was a Halloween party that we both went to. And I dressed like an old man, literally. I threw baby powder in my hair and wore a cardigan and just got absolutely schmammered. While at this party, she starts flirting with somebody right in front of me. And as someone who knew exactly how to deal with their emotions, I decided it would be the greatest idea to just keep drinking and see where that went. So eventually I just got to the point where I just couldn't talk anymore. It's not that I didn't want to. It's just like, I need to go home. Like, there's nothing I don't want to... I can't, like, I physically can't talk to anybody right now, and I just need to go home. So she's just like, are you mad at me? And I was like, no. Okay, why are you acting weird? Okay, I'm going to take you home for the best. So she takes me home. She tucks me into bed, and then she's like, we're going to talk tomorrow. And I was like, okay, neat. Bedtime now. Sleep. So the next day, I'm feeling a little anxious. I was like, okay, I think we're going to break up today. And I wasn't disappointed about it. It was just one of those, like, all right, it's going to happen, and then I'll be free of whatever this weird relationship is where we don't really get along. There's a lot of arguments, and then she texts me, and she's just like, hey, I'll be over tonight about 7:30. And I was like, okay, I'll be at my house because that's where I live. And she's just like, okay, great. So then my roommate Devin gets home, and at the time he was dating, you guys may know her as Tony. She was my friend Jackie. So they're there at the apartment, and I was like, guys, I think I'm going to get broken up with today. And they were like, why do you seem so excited? And I was like, because this whole thing is just weird. Like, I'm ready she wants to break up with me, I'm going to let her do it, and then just, okay, bye. Like, do I act sad? What do I do? How do I do this when you're, like, ready to just end this relationship? And I was like, and it's a high school relationship at best. We've been dating for 4 weeks. Like, there's going to be no hard feelings. So she gets there, and she's just like, okay, can we go talk in your room, please? And I was like, yeah, that's a weird place to have a serious talk, but okay. So we go, and we sit down in my room on my bed. And she's like, by the way, I've always hated how you decorated your room. And I was like, okay. Thanks. And she's just like, I don't think this is working out. And I was like, bummer. And she's like, I think we should break up. And I was like, I feel like if that's how you feel, then you're probably right. And she's like, so no fight, nothing? And I was like, no, it seems like you really made up your mind. There's nothing I can do to really beg you to stay after I made an ass out of myself last night. So, yeah, if you think you need to go. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go now. And I was like, again, probably for the best. I'm going to sit, see how I feel, see if I can get over this. And so she leaves. And I walk into Devin's room. I had no boundaries with my roommate at this time. So I just walk into his room, and Jackie and him are laying on the bed watching a movie. And I flop down on the bed, face down, right in between them. And they're like, okay. And Jackie was like, so how'd the breakup go? And I'm just talking into the mattress. Like, I didn't even pick up my head, and just... And she's like, I know, you really tried. And I was like... And she's like, yeah, I bet it was really hard. Yeah, you made an ass out of yourself last night. The whole time, my buddy Devin is just like, how can you understand him right now? And she's like, I speak Esti. It's okay. So I do a single push-up, and I stand right up, and I was like, okay, I'm over it. I'm going out. And they're like, what? So I go out, and I met a nice girl that night, and she came over, and I got over it. 2 weeks later, my ex calls me and goes, hey, I think we need to talk. And I was like, oh, no. Are we about to unbreak up? Because I don't want that. And she goes, how about I come over after work, I pick you up, we go to the bar, and we get some closure. And I was like, you broke up with me. What do you need closure over? Okay, so she comes, she picks me up, and I knew which bar we were going to, and I was like, okay, if this goes south, worst case scenario, I walk home. I'm like 3/4 of a mile away from my place. So we get there, and the last thing I remember is, let's do some shots. And the next thing I remember, I do not remember our conversation at the bar at all. So the irony being that she broke up with somebody who made a drunk asshole of themselves, she decided to get that guy drunk again. So the next thing I remember is she's taking me home, and we're walking up to my apartment, and we're making out about every other concrete square on our way up to the door. And then at one point, she starts to fall over. And in my head, I was like, oh no, she's falling. Be the gentleman. Save her. And so I reached out and I grabbed the back of her head. And then I realized, oh, I am also falling now. Who's going to catch me? No one is the answer. And I just ate shit into the gravel face first and cut my lip and got a black eye. And then we go inside. And she's like, I need to go to the bathroom. And she was like trying to act seductive and like goes into the bathroom. And I go into my room and I just like lay on the bed like a little kid, like just sprawled out, like, all right, waiting now. And then my roommate comes in and just like barges right into my room. And he's like, who's here right now? And I was like, no one. And he's like, someone's in the bathroom. And I was like, no one. And he's like, is it her? And I was like, no. And he's like, it's totally her. And so he walks by and he just bangs on the bathroom door and goes, I hate you. And then I was like, go to bed, Devin. And he's like, I'm going to do that. So he goes to bed. She comes out fully naked. And I was like, this is a great idea. 30 minutes later, I start to sober up and realize this is a terrible idea. And she could read it on my face, and she goes, what's wrong? And I was like, I hate you. And she's like, and you're just realizing this now? And I was like, no, I felt this the whole time. We just don't get along at all. And she's like, I know we don't. And I was like, then why are we doing this? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, I think you should leave now. And she's like, no, I'm going to stay the night. And I was like, no, leave. I fall asleep. So the next thing I remember is, again, no boundaries with my roommate. He kicks down my door in the morning, or tries to, and he just bangs on the door and he goes, hey, are you two awake? And she goes, oh, I think I should go. And I was like, I think you should have left last night. And why are you still here? I hate you. I believe I said that like 4 hours ago. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize that's how you actually felt. And I was like, yeah, that's something we got to work on, is this whole honesty thing between us. And she's like, well, and then that's when like the real fight actually happened of our relationship. She's just like, I didn't like how indecisive you were. And I was like, what do you mean indecisive? She's just like, anytime I suggested we do something, we just did that. Like, you didn't have your own opinions, you didn't want to do. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, every time I would come over and we watch a movie, you would make me pick out the movie. And I was like, yeah, because you're picking from my DVD collection. So I like those movies. So I'm not opposed to watching any of them. I don't understand where this is going. And she's like, well, we didn't actually go on any formal dates. And I was like, that's because like our second informal date, you told me that you hated going on formal dates, and so I quit asking you. And I was like, and we dated for 4 weeks. Get out of my apartment. And she's like, fine, if that's how you want it. And I was like, yeah, I've been saying that literally this entire time. So she goes to leave, And when she opens the bedroom door, my roommate's standing on the other side of it with his arm crossed and goes, "You heard him. Leave." And she's like, "How long have you been standing there?" And Devin's like, "This whole time." And I was like, "That's weird. Like, since last night?" And he's like, "No." So she leaves. Like, she tries to storm out, and she goes to slam the door, and Devin catches it and goes, "No one slams my door." And then he slams it. And he locks the deadbolt behind her. And so I'm laying there in bed, just staring at the ceiling, going, why do I do this to myself? And what are these life decisions that I'm making? And Devin climbs into bed with me, under the covers, and goes, "So are you going to tell me about last night?" And I was like, I feel like I need a shower first. I need to get myself clean of all these poor life decisions. And I go to stand up, and I'm wearing a pair of basketball shorts and a white undershirt that I wore to bed. And Devin goes, "Oh my God, what the hell happened to you? Did you get in a fight with a cat?" And I was like, "No, why?" And he's like, "Go look at yourself in the mirror." There are literal claw marks all over, like, my chest and my back. And my lip had still been bleeding, and apparently there was still some dried blood there. And I just had the biggest black eye and a fat lip. And I was like, I look like I got fucked up by something last night. And he's like, "Yeah. So beer with breakfast?" And I was like, that sounds like a great idea. And that's my story of getting over it. So our next storyteller recently celebrated a birthday. Oh, what a birthday. And real quick with me, if we could all celebrate it here and enjoy this moment with one round of "Happy birthday to you." Woo! So if you would please help me welcome the hostess with the mostest, the OG host of Chatterbox, the reason why we are all here, Jessie.
Guys, happy birthday is the most uncomfortable thing, and I do it to people that come, and I'm sorry. Man, I just don't realize, like, I think the older I love birthdays. My birthday is really fun. But when people sing happy birthday, what do? Like, you just sit around, you look at everyone in the eyes? I don't know. It stresses me out. I'm I'm a little stressed. I was fine telling the story, but now I'm like, thanks for well-wishing me. So I didn't tell the story at Dating Game when we had that episode of Chatterbox. That show a couple weeks ago, and Estevan's breakup story reminded me of some really bad dates. So here we go. I feel like the ratio of me being broken up with and me breaking up with someone is probably like 50-50. Like, I think it's probably a solid 50-50 split. I've had my fair share of, like, being dumped and then also, like, dumping other people. And I think, like, the most awkward ones happened right before I started dating my most recent partner, John. I think just, like, the amount of people, I was just kind of in a weird place. I was trying new things. I was like, sure. And, like, out at different types of events, so I was meeting different kinds of people than I normally would. And I think I say yes too much. I feel like that guy from Yes Man. Like, I just say yes to everything, and I make a lot of impulsive decisions that way. And so this is what happens. And so I dated a guy that I had met so briefly at a show. Like, that's not a quality meeting place, guys. Like, if you were both drunk and dancing and you can't see them that well, you don't really know what they look like because it's dark. Like, probably a wash. But I went on another date with this guy, and we hung out a handful of times. He's a pretty cool dude. And then he just started to, like, open up about some weird stuff, and he also kind of looked like a skinhead. Just decisions that you make in your life. And he was a nice enough person, but he was really reserved, and I'm not that way, so I felt like I was just talking a lot and kind of consuming a lot of conversation. And one night, because I stayed up pretty late, I had a job where I worked later in the evening, so I was usually up pretty late. He was like, hey, do you want to go to IHOP with me? And it was like 2 a.m. during the middle of the week, and I was up, and I was like,